I'm so thankful to be here with you, and I will try to share with you some lessons learned from the past 15 years of testing safety critical systems, right? But let's get right into it. I don't want to talk a lot about me, but if I can define myself also at work or at home, I will say, yeah, I'm a tester. I test things at home, I test things on my spare time, I've done crowd testing, I've won the best bug at a hackathon, so testing is part of my life. And I want to share and talk about testing. That's why I also like to be at conferences. And I spend a lot of time testing trains, not really trains, but signaling systems. But it's a little bit hard to explain the difference. So let there be trains, right? I like handball. Is somebody who likes handball here? Is this something? Yeah, is this something a thing in Estonia? Not really. All right, so this is in Hanover, one of the Bundesliga teams I'm rooting for. I like to travel by bike a lot. So if I can do that all day, I will do that all day. Right? Come on in. You're not missing anything important. I'm just talking about myself. So. I have a family of 2 kids. My daughter is 14, so I'm having a lot of fun with puberty. And my son is 9, and he's a ball of energy. So but I'm having fun, so it's not like that. And I come from Braunschweig, which has one of the best American football teams in Germany, and at some point also in Europe. And if you ask like Braun, what? Yeah, I bought my hoodie with the name of the city in it. So, yeah, not to cause you more problems than you already might have. All right. So I like also trains. In the meantime, I studied management. Well, you never know where life is gonna bring you. But we are at a test conference, so you don't know anything about me. Maybe it will interest you what I'm thinking, what could be a definition for myself for testing, right? And it evolved a lot from, finding bugs. It was at some point in my career, it was like, we find bugs, yeah, that's testing, right? Or good questions, putting good questions in the room, right? So it kind of evolved, and it's nothing new. It's inspired Sam Kainer, and it's inspired from a lot of people that influenced my life. So for me, it is an action, a generic action. It's not about software project. It's not about systems. It is a generic action where the tester, myself, is trying to find out information about a situation. Like I said, sometimes I'm testing myself. Where am I with my daughter? Is she able to speak with me today? It's also like testing waters, dipping your toes, right? So to get information, for me, it's been a lot about getting information from a situation. But that doesn't stop there. Why am I doing that? And that applies also in my family, but also in my projects. I want to offer this information so that it's supporting the decision making. Am I talking to my daughter now, or is it better to go away, right? Or does the project manager have enough information to talk to the client, to ship, to not to ship, right? To go into the next stage? It doesn't matter, right? And that's for me and for my team, that's the value of testing, right? Of course, you can test yourself to death and have no value, right? Have information that's not supporting the decision-making process. All right? But now really, it's enough about me. Today, what we're going to do today, we just get a glimpse in this highly complex, complicated railway industry, the signaling part, so it's not like really building trains, that's not, it's everything else, what's on the side. So like signals, like points, like, we'll get to that. And share some lessons that I've learned and that had impact on my career in the past 15 years. At the end, there is a quiz to see if you were not on your phone. So you can also win something if my integration works. So, all right. But enough talking. I just want to ask you, if you are thinking about such an industry like the railway industry, what characteristics might come into mind? Just shout out, I don't mind. Reliability. Sorry? Safety? Yeah, safety definitely. Reliability? Yeah, definitely a good aspect. Okay, correctness, that's there, yeah. Complexity. Thank you. That's an important part of our talk today, complexity. Sorry? Comfort? Well, we don't, what we're doing, it's not for the mass people, it's like more for operators and like reliability, but availability is something for the comfort. You don't want the operator to sweat when the system is not available, so definitely something to talk about. Complex, yeah, I could give you the price now, but I won't, it's for something else. Complexity. We have regulated environment, right? That's a big issue. You heard the two speakers, yeah, talking also about regulated environment. That's the same here. We have long life cycles, like long life cycles. If we are like really fast, it's between 3 and 6 months. If we are like doing our normal stuff, it's 3 years, 18 months, right? We won't get into that. And of course, the regulation is because the safety related, but that's the most important part of the regulation, right? So we're gonna talk about testing in this extremely complex environment, right? And we start with the processes, right? And I'm not lying to you. This is one of our development process if we're talking about developing software, right? We go agile, we do semi-agile, we do V model, we do all kinds of things. And it looks like that you have some milestones there. Yeah, if you see, we have some agile milestones, right? You say, yeah, okay, I can live with that from the complexity point of view, more or less. Oh, but we have hardware, right? Yeah, and that's not that agile. Well, we're doing like V model, right? We're doing requirements and architecture and components and integration and test way. Yay. Do some of you recognize that, more or less? Yeah, no? It's a common thing. But we have software, we have hardware. That means that we have a kind of a system, right? And then we go again. So we have system requirements, and we do system integration tests. And what I liked, Lars, yeah, let's talk about the definition of a system. What is system for you? What is system for you? Well, and you can spend days in talking about the system definition, right? So this is one aspect, the processes. Then you have the actual systems, so they do the work. Usually in signaling, we have 3 safety-relevant kind of product categories. We have the operation and control system. We were talking about operators, like you have these big screens. Yeah. So in Copenhagen, it's like a big screen wall where you can see the trains and so on, and a lot of operators, right? You have the train control systems, right? You simply said. They take care that 2 trains are not at the same track at the same time, right? So, and you have the interlocking, which is the logic of between signals and points, and if there is a signal showing green in that direction. The other one is not allowed to show green in the other direction, right? So it's the interlocking. And the problem with these two, because we are usually the clients have all that, is they communicate with each other and they have interfaces and so on, right? And if we are talking about the testing, and I'm not lying to you, I hate the testing pyramid. It's been there for far too long, but it is an accurate, generic but accurate picture of how many test levels we can have from development, which you have on this side. This is only the development project, right? Yeah, you can skip one or two, yeah, maybe, right? And this is the project execution. These are the guys that don't know anything about software, but they know about systems, right? So there's their knowledge, right? So here you are generic, here you have customer data. Each customer has another data. Where are my stations? What's the distance between stations? And so on. Where are my points? Right? All right. So this is the complexity. And now I have an example for you. Yeah, I will explain. So I tested for several years in operation and control systems. Usually you have a safety integrity level, so the safety relevant is between 0 and the highest is 4, and operation and control systems are usually 2, train control systems and interlocking are 4. And we introduced so looking back over my career, one of the most interesting features there were, it was a legacy systems, and we introduced the so-called train symbol, or train worm was called among the testers, but it doesn't matter, right? And what happened? We had a really talented developer and said, oh, there's no problem. The train control system says the train is here, so it sends position reports, and I will take them and put it into the display because we know this segment starts here and then it's there and so on. No problem at all. So I will hack it, all right? So he hacked it, and well, it's a lot of math there, right, behind that. Well, and said, oh, it's finished, right? So we said with the testing team and said, okay, how can you test it in different? There are different constellations here, right? Point is going there, and so on. And we created like a fast feedback sheet, so a fast feedback test to test a lot of these combinations. And after a half an hour of that and saying, well, you have a rocket here, right? And it's like taking away, is that what you want? One of the most interesting bugs we found. And you have like, well, it looks like the snake on the Nokia, like on the Nokia phones. It's that what you want, or here, right? So, and I can tell you, it lasted 6 months until we didn't find such errors, right? And at the beginning, because at the beginning we all laughed, yeah, you'll never do it, and so on. So it was like a little bit of mockery. Don't do that. It was a little bit of mockery. But does anybody know what reframing is? Lena Thompson, in her workshop, I think she talked a little bit about that. Reframing is taking the situation and taking your emotions out and swapping it, or trying to see the positive side. And you see this reframing icon I've used. Half glass empty, half glass full is the best example. And we as testers said, okay, what's the problem? Problem is extremely complex. It was clear at some point for everybody. So let's put our minds together and make the test, not make mockery. We receive a new version and we say, yeah, your train symbol is all over the place. But trying to help through our tests, to our intelligent tests, see, okay, what other constellations are there? right? That could be a problem, and we went into design with the designer and say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So we went into so we took it from like the mockery and reframe it and say, okay, we are successful as a team, right? I don't know what that is. Okay. Then I'll skip this slide. I don't know what the error says. It works on my computer, by the way. What do you think, in such a complex environment, what are some skills that the tester team should possess? Just shout out. I wanted for you to scan, but it's not working like that.
Let's try allowing them continuing.
All right, let's try allowing it and continuing it. That's on my... Yeah, that would be great. That part shouldn't be there, but can you insert something here? Maybe test it? All right, no, please go back. It got worse, right? But thank you for, let's go to the next slide. But shout out, what do you think? What do you think do we need? Thank you. What do you think we need, testers would need in such a, just... Sir, modeling. Yeah, definitely. Some other skills?
Curiosity.
Sorry? Curiosity. That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Creativity, right. Diverse team, right? That's creativity is not something like, yeah, it grows usually in diverse teams. Good questions. Yeah, definitely. Communication. Maybe. Alignment, right? Definitely. And a lot of more. Yeah, don't get me wrong. But if you remember the creepy pyramid before, it's not enough, right? Because it's only 1-2 layers of this pyramid. You'll never know what the customer, how the customer will use it. So what do we need more? Except it won't work without these basic skills. It's important to know your limitations. And I'm talking, of course, about biases like personal team limitations, but not only that. It's also about what can you test on that level, to know your context. On which level are you actually? What can you do? For example, in the development environment, you don't always have the interfaces, the real interfaces that a customer might have, right? This is a risk. We'll get to that. Think about what can you provide as, well, if you are imagining yourself in one of those pyramid layers and say, hey, I'm providing the generic feature with most of the combinations there, but if you have something interesting or something else in the customer projects, that is something that we have to know because we won't know it all, right? Because you are in a specific process step, for example, and you don't have the possibility, or because you are only in your system, you cannot always tell what the other systems are sending and when and how and right, at what time and in what order and so on. You can simulate, right? But there's always a risk. And you have to, there is a small red point, you have to know where you are in that. Yeah? And most important, what will the others do and what they won't. Yeah? And you have to talk about what you cannot provide. Right? That's not proper English. My wife told me this morning, I know, but I think you get the message. You have to be open what you cannot provide and saying, we didn't test with real interfaces. That's a risk, right? And the most important, who is going to use your output, your reports? We have a lot of reports. I don't want to talk about it. We have a lot of reports. Who is going to use that? Who's going to read that? And what's the value? And I have to tell you one of my most memorable stories. I work here also as a validator. I do reports and tell customer projects, which things work and which things do not work, and I make user rules, right, or application conditions are called, right, and I'm writing myself a lot of 120 application conditions, right. And I was so proud of my work because I could explain it from where it comes, why it's so, and so on. And then six months later, I had to answer. My application condition is the customer project. And I was like petrified because I say, I know where it's coming from, I know what it, but it doesn't bring value in the customer project. This information does not bring value, right? So I answered them, and then I went back into the project and I cut them to 30. But they were valuable. They were important, right? Engineering rules, for example, what you're allowed to do and not to do, right? It's something that's, and it was not of lack of not wanting to do that, but I didn't had that perspective, right? Because if you say the scope, what is at the customer, it's that big, a layer does that. Well, another layer does this. The other one, that's usually the development. They are like they like stars, right? It's this and this and that. Yeah. The problem is you will never cover the complete scope because there are always errors outside, right? So on the track at the customer, right? And you have overlaps, and you're doing at some point more that it's in the scope, right? So this is something we are trying to do systematically to see the whole scope and then to try to identify the gap, the overlay, and the extra. All right. What happens if the scope expands? That's something we are having our problem. Something changes, scope is bigger. This does not get back as an information to the places it should be. Yeah, and now what? We are identifying this is scope, then a lot of questions, especially from management, come. All right, gap, nice. We address everything. We have overlays. We eliminate all the overlays. Or we're doing more. Or we eliminate all the extras. That are the questions, right? What's important here is to see what the actual risks in the industry are. And you said about reliability is definitely a risk, right? But what's the most important risk here? How can Siemens be in the papers? Right? Safety relevance, right? So impact on human life, impact on materials, right? Material damage, definitely. You get that fast. The second one is definitely reliability, availability, right? If thousands of people are waiting for the trains, well, or having to take the bus, not that bad. And of course, the lack of competitiveness, right? Because you have high costs, you are not competitive, or you don't reach the deadlines. So you have financial loss. It's usually you have to pay if you are not hitting the deadline. You have to pay for compensation, right? So all the question on the other thing have to be to say, okay, what is the risk? Because you won't be able to eliminate, for example, all the extras because there are features that are so complex you cannot take them out, right? Because it's like 30 years old, right? You don't want to do it. You don't know what it's gonna happen. You don't want to do that, all right? So it's exactly what is the risk? Does covering a gap hits one of those major risks that we have? Yeah, then we have to do something. If not, well, if you cannot close a dialogue at some point and it happens one per month, then it is like it is, instead of waiting another 3 to 6 months, right, to repair it. It is like that. So we talked about complexity, talked about regulated environment. We have the norm, we have the European norm. It's just a subset. That's Senelec norm. right? We have, for example, standards like the UNISIG for ETCS, European Train Control System. It's something that we want to do since the early 90s to have that everybody's running on the same kind of system. We are not getting there. Belgium does a very good job. We have the internal processes, of course, like I showed you. And we have assessment bodies, so people that come from outside and assess the system, and so on, right? And we have the safety integrity levels that are also a big part of us. And they are all flowing into our internal processes. And the problem is, a lot of us take the letter of the law, and we say, we are doing this, and we have this organization because, ta-da, the norm, right? It says there, it's like, so we have to do it, right? And I've been working with this norm like for the past 15 years, and that's not the idea behind it. Of course, it's a lot of bureaucracy and so on, but it's not. For me, the norm has has three main aspects, and we'll get to that, but let's see here the reframing. The reframing icon is here. I had 2-3 colleagues that went from Siemens and say, it's so rigid, we have so many processes for everything and so on, I want to go out and try something new. They went on a startup and got back in the next 6 months. They said, it was chaotic, I cannot work, it's so good to be to have some structure. And I'm hearing a lot of talks also at conferences. I'm saying, yeah, we have a lot of room for improvement, but this structure give us a path. So I'm not like doing anything, only what I want, or I'm not appreciating and saying my manager does not come say and say, you're tested, I don't need you, right? And I heard that sadly a lot, right? So this is my reframing of the whole thing. Let me give you an example. This is from the norm, from the Zenelec norm. It's only the organization, how you can organize. You have the implementer, the designer, the requirement manager, integrator, tester, and so on. How you can organize for the different skill levels, right? And on the same page, you have the other options, right? So like, it's complex, right? Why? The norms are supposed to be a framework, a checklist, so that you do not forget something important. If you decide, and you can argument that you don't need that step, you should do that, because that's your context. And it's not, I'm doing a test specification because the norm says that, right? That's not an argumentation, and please don't do that. If you have processes, don't do something because the process just tells you to do it. You have to understand why the process wants you to do that. And if you agree that it doesn't help you in that context, do not do it, right? Because at some point, it will take a long time and you do not have value, and value is one of the most important things, right? It wants to assure the 4I principles. We can make mistakes, especially in such complex environment. And it's just, the norm just wants you did that. Please take somebody that knows that knows what you did and just give it for a review so that you're not like alone, because we are all biased, right? We don't see all the things, right? And these old pages and the tables in the norm just want you to do that, right? With a minimum level of competency, right? And this is the spirit of the law, and you have to understand. And what happens? It usually happens, we do like, oh, but there is an exception. I will write that in the norm, in the process, and you have like these big processes which covers every possible. Yet, don't do that, right? We are currently working on having our big process that I showed you just to cut into a like really small part to reduce the complexity of the process, right? Because nobody's using it. If it's complex, then nobody understands it, right? So this is my message. Please understand that. for example, reframing. A team of mine reinterpreted the slides with this organization and say, well, so the tester cannot be the validator, so for this function, you're the tester, I'm the validator. For the next function, I'm the tester, you're the validator. It's like, right? We don't have the same role on the same feature, right? But implementing the spirit of it, right? And the last point for today is title versus role. Keynote in the morning, the CEO doing the data labeling. That was a beautiful example for title versus role. It was his title doing actually what is needed and not what his title said, right? So we have to discover, I'll come to the example, we have to discover what is our actual role. Okay, I'm the tester, I'm the validator, I'm sometimes the team lead or the test manager, but sometimes that's not my role. I'll come to that. So you have to discover, okay, how do I actually help the team? It's like labeling data, it helped, right? You have to acknowledge that, saying, yeah, okay, that's what I'm good at, yeah, to see it, okay, does the team also see that? So that's, and you have to accept it, or not, like, he did. He said, yeah, I accept it. I do that because it helps. Right. And of course, it's always about what is actually the value that the team gets out of this role. That's the theory a little bit. And I worked in a project where we had like 5 testers, integrators, whatever. And I had a test manager that wasn't technical, right, in a customer project. And he said, my role is to defend everybody of you, so that the project manager does not come and say, when are you finished? I will take this. And he did not let anything come to us. We could focus on our work. Pulling cables, we did that a lot in that project. Pulling cables and waiting to see what happened, right? Then we had a part automation, right? And we say, we weren't that good, but we had a colleague and saying, I have the idea, I'm writing the test case. You implement because it takes me 2 days, it takes you 2 hours, right? So don't waste your time and go pulling cable. I can do that for you, yeah? But you are integrating this, right? I was the integration lead, I was the technical, whenever the customer was in-house, is saying, nobody's touching it, I'm going there. And it was one of the most energy draining meeting for 3.5 hours where I had to talk to the customer how we test, right? But that was my role. Everybody saying, yeah, Alex is doing, let the others test, right? I had an integrator who is now 60 years old. He has a huge experience in integrating European train control systems, right? And we had an interlocking from another provider, so quite complex. Saying, you don't script, you don't write test cases, you go and find the bugs, right? And we had one person who was like, what do I have to do? Do I have to write test cases? Okay, I have to write test cases. I'm going to write test cases. Do I have to implement? No problem. Do I have to do something else? So the diligent B, right? And this is not something that changes with the team and the roles and the context. If you're diligent B, it's not necessarily you're going to be a diligent B in the next one, right? And I have a task now where I have to map contract requirements to proofs. But I'm saying I'm helping. I don't want to start the discussion, to go to the discussion, but I'm helping you. I'm just doing my best, and I accept this role, right? Because I have to lead my team. I don't have time for getting into the project and trying to make things better. So I accepted that this is what they need. I think that's maybe not that good, but so I'm accepting this role because I can offer them only 20% of my time, right? So saying, okay, these are the new requirements, look for evidence, I'm looking for evidence, I'm writing them down. finished. Everybody's happy, so they think. It's my personal opinion, right? So this is also one of the important lessons. Yeah, and sometimes it has to be it takes some time to see what the actual role is, right? I told you about accepting my faith in my current project, about reframing. So I'm like, it seems to help the project, so I'm just doing it. I don't really like that, but there are other parts of my work that I really do enjoy, right? All right, so this is about it. I just want to wrap up. So we talked about identifying and handling limitation in complex environments and where to act and where maybe not to act. We talked about risk-oriented gap analysis. Right? That's the next step on diverse team asking good questions. Right? Spirit versus the letter of the law, and the difference between title and role. All right. And reframing, yeah, we talked a little bit about reframing. Whenever you are in a bad position on your project and you cannot change it, because it's not always like that. It is like jumping from job to job. You have to say, okay, what is the positive aspects of that, right? Okay, I have a bonus quiz. I wanted to do that with the Mentimeter. That's not gonna work, but let's try it. I have a small prize for you. It doesn't really matter this because we're not doing that, but I have a question for you. On how many slides without this one, no train could be seen? First one with the hand up. Come on, you can see what you will win. I have it here, so it's, come on, hand up. Yeah? Okay, that's not true.
Too many.
Sorry. 4. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's the agile unicorn, right? So, all right.
So we have time for one question.
All right, let's sit it.
Did I see any hands? Well, I see one hand.
When you're building your team and having all these different roles and stuff like that, do you look for different personality types to fit a role, or do people just go to what they like?
That's a beautiful question. I wish I would, but it's like resource management. You usually work with what you have, right? It is like that. Yeah, it could, yeah. So if I'm talking in my team, I have 20 people working in 6 different projects, then this is my playground. So I'm trying to match and mix, right? So it fit. It's not always possible, but this is what I do. But if I'm going in the project, the team is already set up of the available resources. So yeah. So it kind of grows together. All right?
All right. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much.